I'm just having the best time, you guys. That's why I love these types of books. Okay, I do think I need to eat my words a little bit. Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. Now, I am home alone. I also have a lot of books to read, and it's also a rainy day outside. So I feel like all of these elements are adding up to tell me that I need to do a 24-hour readathon. So that's what we're going to do today. We're basically just going to spend one big cozy day reading as much as we want to. Now, I know that these days there are so many ways to do a 24-hour readathon. My personal favorite way, after years and years of experience doing these, is that my reading enjoyment factor is best when I just put no stress on myself, no pressure. I don't put on a timer. I just check the time when the readathon starts, and then I just live my life, read as much as I want to until the next day when that time rolls around again. So that's what we're going to be doing. I do have a priority TBR, which I'm probably most definitely not going to get to all of these books in the next 24 hours, but some books that are pretty high on my radar are, first of all, these 3 books are the remainder of my June TBR that I need to read. So I've read 2 out of the 5 so far. I definitely want to get to at least 1 more of these in this readathon, and then I can finish the other 2 throughout the rest of the month before the month ends. So we have Kingdom of Back, Crescendo, and The Jessed Crown. I'm honestly leaning towards Kingdom of Back for this readathon. I kind of want to start with this book first because I have been anticipating reading it for so long, and then on top of that, I have these 2 books that are high up on my radar that I kind of really want to get to. So first of all, Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick. Everyone's been talking about this book, and I've been hearing so many good things about this one. So this one is high on my radar. It's just one of those books where I want to see what everyone is talking about. I feel like I also have been reading somewhat, kind of heavy books, so I feel like something light like this will be very good for me, especially during a 24-hour readathon. And I also need to read Heart the Lover by Lilly, a contemporary fiction. This is not on my monthly TBR, but it's actually on my spring TBR. And as we're getting to the end of spring, it honestly feels a little bit more summer these days with kind of the warm weather. I need to finish this one up to wrap up my spring TBR. So that's high on my priority as well. And then the last book that's really high on my radar right now is To Dream in Darkness by Liang, which is an ARC that I received. It's on my Kobo. It's an e-ARC, and you guys know my obsession with A Song to Drown Rivers, and so I really want to read that one sooner rather than later. So I might read a couple of physical books to start, and then maybe we'll move on to the Kobo and do a Kobo read, because I also want to play more with annotating using my fun little stylus that I just got with my Kobo. So that's the priority TBR for today. Okay, my friends, we are actually doing something so exciting over on Fable this next month that I need to tell you about, and I would love to thank Fable for sponsoring this video. So you guys know that we have so much fun over on Fable with our book club, our monthly read. I love the sense of community. I love reading a book alongside you guys every month, but this month we are doing an extra special one-time only book club, and not only is it a book that I just think sounds so good with the premise, but also you might have a chance of winning a free copy. So yeah, we will be giving away 100 free copies of this book over on Fable if you join this one-time special book club. And the book that we are reading is actually one that sounds so good. It is called Ring, Ribbon, Tether, and Trap. It is by Brian J. Welch. Now, the comp titles for this book are The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which you guys know I'm already sold, and the second comp title is Pure Nessie, which I actually haven't read, but it's a book that so many of you guys always recommend to me, and is definitely a book that I need to pick up sooner rather than later. The synopsis for this book, are you ready? We follow Sophia, who is 23 years old, or 2,397, depending on how you look at it. She has lived multiple lives and remembers every life she's lived. So she lives this very strange and often lonely existence, but at least she has her adopted family, 5 sisters who have endured since before the universe first blinked into being. We love an immortal found family. So Emma has always been kind of the reckless immortal sister. One day she dives down to New Orleans and she meets Simon, a poet who lives only one life at a time. But Simon's memories are unlike anyone else's, and with this accidental key, Emma now has the perfect escape from her lonely existence. Does this not sound like a book that I'm absolutely gonna love? A play on memory, a play on immortality. Like, it just really sounds like an emotional journey that I will love, and a deep dive into the mind and how living forever affects your mind. So yes, for one time only, this is the one extra book club we are doing for the month of July. And if you join the club over on Fable and post a comment in the kickoff room, you will automatically get a chance to be one of those 100 lucky readers who will receive a free copy of the book on your Fable bookshelf. And the winners will be selected on June 30th, so make sure you join and comment in that kickoff room before then. I absolutely cannot wait. The link will be in the description box below to join. As a reminder, as usual, Fable is always free to join. The book club is free to join, so like, why not do it? So yeah, needed to share. Definitely something very exciting. Thank you again, Fable, so much for sponsoring this video. Literally my favorite reading app out there. And yeah, I'll see you over in that book club. Yeah, link and everything, find it in the description box below. Let's get back into the readathon. And I am gonna start with The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. I've been so excited to read this for so long. Ever since I read Red City in November, I've been wanting to dive into another Marie Lu. You guys know this, so I'm gonna get into this one. I also feel like I've been kind of in a historical fiction kick, and I love this sort of subgenre where we get historical fiction but mix in a bit of magic with it. So it's like a historical fiction slash fantasy. I've been loving that vibe. And this one follows Nannerl Mozart. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, but essentially she is Mozart's sister. And this book tells her story because Nannerl was a girl who was always very gifted with music as well. She was talented and she also did have a passion for it. She truly loved it. But because of the time they were alive in the 18th century, she, as a girl, never had the same opportunities that her brother had. She wasn't allowed to compose. There were all of these, societal things that prevented her from doing what she loved. And her father was actually kind of tyrannical and really enforced this kind of thing. So she just never had the opportunity to shine as she wanted to. And as they grow older, as she sees her brother get more successful and, he starts getting noticed and, becomes Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart as we know him, her hope and her light just continues to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, when one day, this is where like the fictional fantasy part comes in, a mysterious stranger from a magical land comes up to her and offers this deal that is just so irresistible. Basically, he can make her wishes, her dreams come true, but obviously at a cost. So that is the story. It's one of those books where, we're taking a real life situation, a real life story, but obviously adding some fictional elements, adding some fantasy, adding some magic in there. But I just have a feeling I'm gonna love this. I mean, I already know I love Marie Lu's writing. I love anything to do with the arts too, like performing arts, music, dance, theater. Like I love, 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 love all of that stuff. And I just have such high hopes for this one. So hopefully we're starting this day of reading with a bang. It is actually currently, what time is it? We'll take note of the time so we know when to stop tomorrow. It's 8:18 right now. So let's call that 8:20 a.m. But okay, there's nothing else to do but to start reading. Genuinely, I'm just having the best time, you guys. I am just having the absolute best time. I do love Marie Lu's writing. I was a little bit worried because, the only book I've read from her so far is Red City. So I'm like, how about if the second book I read from her doesn't hit as hard? But it's still good. It's still so good. If you are a fan of V.E. Schwab, you will love Marie Lu's writing. I said this when I read Red City, and I think just reading this too, it confirms that. Their writing styles in terms of how they describe feelings, I think is very similar. This one in particular is kind of giving me Addie LaRue vibes. The way that Nannerl's feelings, her emotions, just like everything she's going through and how it's described in detail is really reminding me of how Addie LaRue's inner thoughts were described. They just have a very similar vibe there. I don't know how better to describe it. It's just they have, very similar emotion writing. So in terms of the overall vibe of this book, also I am on around page 120. I am just like blasting through this book. I'm almost halfway through it and I've just been sitting in this chair this morning. But it is giving me like Addie LaRue vibes meets Narnia meets The Sound of Music almost. Obviously the similarities to Addie LaRue with the writing style with kind of like a V.E. Schwab style writing, but then we also also get similar elements, like with this mysterious stranger that our character is kind of like almost forced into this bargain with, and also how we're seeing our protagonist really be like put down, restricted by the societal customs and societal expectations as a girl growing up in Austria in the 18th century, like just seeing how she's treated and how she's expected to be this subservient girl who just follows instructions, who, you know, is being trained, molded to be the perfect wife, quote unquote, when she grows up. But at the same time, she has to be super talented. Like, she has to be subservient, she has to be meek and obedient and just like keep her eyes on the floor, you know? But also at the same time, her father is expecting her to have this talent, this greatness, to help the family bring in wealth and fame and all of that, but always as second place to her brother. Like, be good, but don't be too good so you don't outshine your brother. And I feel like those stories always hit me really deeply as well. And then we tie that in with, yeah, this kind of Narnia-esque magical environment that is deeply tied into the music, and it's a magical world that only the children can see. So there's just a lot to love about this. I also do appreciate how Mozart as the brother, like, he's not being made out to be a villain as well, because in the story he is also a child, so he is also just listening to what his parents are telling him, but at the same time he is sort of like, he doesn't really have a full understanding of what's happening, but at the same time he has this childlike optimistic attitude about everything, and I feel like that's always just very precious to read about as well. So yeah, I am really enjoying this. I'm gonna continue reading it. I'm probably gonna honestly finish this book before lunch because I am just blasting through this. I'm having the best time. So okay, we're gonna continue reading The Kingdom of Back. I think I have about 30 pages left. It's not necessarily the longest book in the world. It's only just around 300 pages, and the font and everything is pretty big in this book, and I am still overall enjoying this. It's not a perfect read for me. There are a couple things that I'm not like completely vibing with as we've been moving through the story. There just kind of seems to be like two running plots throughout this book, and it's not like jumping timelines or it's not anything. It's definitely one cohesive overall story, but there definitely is kind of a difference between our real world scenes and then our kind of Narnia scenes, I guess I can call it, our magical world scenes. And I'm just finding myself to be a lot more interested in the real world historical parts of it versus the Narnia parts, because once we jump into this magical world, it does feel like quite questy, and just jumping into this book, I didn't expect it to feel so questy, and so maybe it's just a mood thing. I just wasn't expecting that sort of a vibe jumping in, so I'm not loving the magical quest side of this book. I also think like every time we jump into Narnia, actually, you know what, I should probably call the magical world the actual title. It's called The Kingdom of Back. So every time we jump into The Kingdom of Back, I think those sections just read quite young to me. This book I think is technically YA, but I feel like every time we jump into The Kingdom of Back, the magical part, it starts feeling even younger, like a very young YA or almost even a middle grade vibe. I think just with like the magical quest, the magical task stuff, yeah, it kind of reads a little bit young, and so it's kind of losing me in those parts, but I am still really connecting with the real world side of things. I think stories like this based in history and kind of like uplifting women, kind of revealing the hidden side of certain historical events or like famous people that existed, I think are always really interesting to me. So I am most definitely enjoying that side of it. Honestly, there are actually a lot of moments in here that happen, and I've been finding myself looking them up to see if those moments actually did happen with Mozart and Earl and their real life histories and lives. And it's really interesting finding out these things that happened in real life either actually happened, or some of these things I think were more speculated, like likely to have happened, but maybe not 100% confirmed. There are a lot of, yeah, moments like that that exist in this story, in this book. And so I'm definitely still enjoying that side of it. But yeah, I'm gonna just finish reading the last 30 pages of this. We're gonna have some lunch, and then we're gonna start into our next read. Wow, I just read the author's note at the back of this book, and I had no idea the Kingdom of Back was real. I mean, like, not real, but apparently the Kingdom of Back was actually an imaginary world that Wolfgang and Nannerl, like the real life versions of them, they actually created this imaginary world called the Kingdom of Back, and it's been noted in their real world histories that this is something that they did, like when they spent so many months traveling in carriages to do all of these musical performances in real life, they created this fantasy world to kind of keep themselves entertained throughout their long journeys. And so upon learning this, Marie Lu decided to write this book. That's what inspired this entire book. That's so cool. That's so cool. See, that's why I love these types of books, like the kind of historical fictions, but add a little bit of magic to them. And then when you see how much of it was actually inspired by real world, like even the fantasy bits of this were, like, obviously a lot of them weren't just made up and a figment of Marie Lu's imagination, but the fact that the source of this world called the Kingdom of Back came from a real life thing. That's so cool. I genuinely love reading author's notes when they offer these like really cool insights like that. In the end, I think I'm gonna rate this a 4-star. I definitely enjoyed most of it. I think the writing in this was honestly my favorite part. Just the way the sentences were strung together, just the balance between description, between the emotions kind of like exuding through the page. I love the writing style in this. Thoroughly enjoyable. Gonna rate this a 4-star. Gonna grab some food because I'm hungry. It's like around 12 now, and we'll grab our next read. All right, I decided on Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick for our second read. This one just sounds like a lot of fun. So the premise of it essentially is Phoebe Berman is our main character, of course, and she's in her 30s, but I think she has some sort of intimacy issues or something. So in her 30s, she still has not lost her virginity. So this story is just kind of like her going on maybe this bucket list type thing where she is just determined to lose it. And that is the story. I think I've heard that, like, as we go on, I mean, on the back of this book, it says 1 month, 3 maybe boyfriends, and a million reasons to panic. So it sounds like we're gonna have 3 different options of guys who she could lose her virginity to. And then as we go on through this romance, we'll see which guy ends up being the guy. And yeah, I guess this story spans over the course of 1 month, but just the premise of this sounds like so much fun. It's honestly reminding me of those teen rom-com movies that we all used to watch, but instead of teen rom-com, make it a character in your 30s. And I'm curious to see how the age thing is gonna play into this, because this, you know, I feel like could go either way. It could just feel very predictable, very young, following an adult who acts like a teenager, or we could use her age as an element and kind of make it into a fresh story in that way. So I'm excited. I mean, I've only heard good things about this book. I've seen everyone reading it. I've seen everyone enjoying it. So let's get into our second read. Okay, initial thoughts. Clever, funny, quirky. I am enjoying the writing style so far. There was actually an author's note right at the beginning of the book where she mentioned that she wanted to write this story for those with physical intimacy, for those who, you know, have had these awkward real life genuine moments when trying to pursue real life romance. And obviously I love that idea. I feel like there are so many romances these days that are just so unrealistic. Like, yes, sometimes it is nice escaping into kind of this heavenly perfect romance, like picture perfect, but you guys know me. I love reading more authentic, genuine stories. I love reading about messy things, and because Brooke did promise that in her author's note, I'm going to be paying special attention to this. I now have really, really high hopes, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how this book goes. But so far, the writing style is cute, so positive start to this one. actually already basically at the halfway point of Phoebe Berman is going to lose it. I'm on page 130-ish, and I mean, it's cute, it's fun. I actually, like, while reading this, I can picture this as a movie. Everything that happens, I'm like, I can see it fully on screen in my head, so that's been fun to read. The writing style flows pretty well for me, nothing really to complain about there, and I am actually appreciating how, with her 3 love interests, like, I'm pretty sure I know who she's gonna end up with, but I do appreciate Brooke for not making it, like, so in your face obvious. Like, I just read The Shippers by Catherine Center, and I feel like she made that book so predictable. Like, every single little thing that happened was so predictable, and all of the things that were included to, like, kind of throw you off, but also, like, on purpose to make it more predictable, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining that well. You know, in a romance book, I mean, romances are kind of supposed to be predictable for the most part, but the author will try and, like, put these thoughts into your protagonist's head to, like, convince your protagonist that the main love interest is not the main love interest, but as the reader, you know it's diverting. Like, you know the protagonist is just wrong in their thoughts. I feel like that was way too obvious in The Shippers, and we're seeing kind of a similar thing in this one, if my hunch about who the final love interest is correct. We're definitely seeing some hints, but it's not made as obvious as Catherine Center did in The Shippers. So that's good. And I think overall the tone of this, like, it just feels really like today. There are a lot of references and jokes that I think reflect a lot of, like, social media and humor today. So if you're the type of person that, like, you know, stays up to date with current day jokes and stuff, I feel like you would find a lot of this funny and relatable and just, like, yeah, new, fresh. It feels really current. It doesn't feel dated. So I do feel like I'm having a decently fun time with this. Is this going to be, like, my favorite romance of all time? Like, something that I talk about always at this point in the story? Not really, but that's okay. Not every romance, you know, has to dive deep into my soul. It really truly is just enjoyable. So I'm going to continue reading it. You know, who knows, maybe the second half of this book will really convince me on it. But so far, it's just fun. So I'm going to continue reading. Yeah, I feel like this one is going to be a very quick read. Okay, I do think I need to eat my words a little bit. I do need to eat my words. The second half of this book was so good. It was so good. I loved it so much. Literally, it was one of those cases where right after I finished talking to you guys with my last update, the whole tone of the book just changed. Like, everything just elevated to the next level. And, you know, I feel like that is probably a common thing in romance books because you do need to, like, do the setup, and a lot of the time the initial setup of a romance book will feel very much the same as a lot of other romance books, but it is the way how, like, your characters develop and how your plot ends up developing that makes any certain romance book stand out from others, and that's what makes it good. And I just feel like the direction this went in with everything worked so well. So first of all, I take back my words on this book feeling predictable. I was so confident in what I thought was gonna happen, but I was surprised. I'm not going to tell you why I was surprised, obviously, but I was definitely surprised. And now after, like, reading these certain surprise moments, I'm like, I should have known. I should have seen the signs. I should have known, but I didn't because, I don't know, I probably had preconceived notions based on some other recent romance books that I have read. But yeah, this one surprised me, which is great. And the thing is, I really liked Phoebe's growth as well as a character. By the end of the book, like, she wasn't perfect. She still had her issues, you know, she still had things she needed to solve. And we definitely had some of these moments where, you know, it was made clear, like, you're always going to have certain problems depending on what stage you you are in life. Life is never just going to be completely perfect, even at your happiest moments, which sounds kind of like a downer, but like realistically, you know, in every stage of your life, there's going to be something different that you're stressing about. There's going to be something different that you're happy about. Like you just go through eras and phases, and I feel like this book did that really well. Also in terms of the relationship, like once we kind of got to our end game, what that was gonna look like, it still wasn't perfect. The relationship didn't just make all of our problems go away, which I find to be the issue with a lot of other contemporary romance authors, is once the couple gets together, it's just like, oh, all of my inner problems are gone. Everything is solved. I get really frustrated at that. So I really enjoyed how in this one, like we got together, everything was happy in the end, but it's like, we're always gonna have something to work on. Like you're gonna look at your problems in a different way. Like maybe you're gonna feel better about them, more optimistic about them, and you and your partner can like kind of figure things out together because you trust each other, and you know, you get that really close support system with that, but it's not perfect. And I love it. I did also love just like all the friendships in this. We had a big friend group component. We had a group chat, we had a lot of friend hangouts, we had a lot of kind of like ups and downs with our friendships, which I think is also really realistic for anyone. Loved all of that, and I don't know, at the end of the day, I feel like this is just a book written for the millennials. Like, I did end up really enjoying this. I'm kind of on the border of a 4.25 or even a 4.5 for this one, which for me is like such a high rating for a contemporary romance, but that's Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It, book 2, complete. It's 431 right now. And I do think I'm gonna pick up Heart the Lover by Lilly King next. I'm so curious with this one. I've been wanting to read it for a little while. I know I haven't read Writers and Lovers, yeah, by the same author, which some people are like, you need to read this one first, and then some people are like, you don't have to read it first, like you can go back to that one later. They're kind of interconnected, but like it doesn't really matter. So I was debating for a while if I should read Writers and Lovers first, but I just thought, I already have this on my physical TBR. I'm just gonna read it. And if I end up loving it, I can always pick the other one up. It follows 3 characters. We have one girl and her 2 guy friends. I think they meet at school and then they get entangled into all of these friendship, relationship, feelings for each other kind of things, but they split ways, and then a while later, maybe it's 10 years later, I don't know, they come back into each other's lives, and all of these old unresolved things come back up. Honestly, I feel like that sounds like the premise of a lot of contemporary or literary fictions. There are probably more details apart from that in this book, and I'll find out what they are once I actually get into it. But yeah, this is gonna be read number 3. I just ate dinner and I actually forgot that I have this event, kind of. It's this online virtual thing that HarperCollins is hosting, and it says it's like a fall fantasy preview. I guess they're going to be talking about some books that are coming out this fall, so I'm gonna attend this. I think it says it's an hour and a half long, and apparently there's some sort of in conversation with Victoria Aveyard. I'm assuming it's about her latest book that's coming out. I honestly completely forgot this was happening today because it's just an online event, you know, so I didn't like put as many stakes on it, or like I didn't pay as much attention to it. I don't even know if it's mandatory for me to attend, but I did RSVP yes to it, so I'm gonna attend. Maybe I'll just kind of like listen in and read kind of at the same time, multitask. I don't know if I'll be able to do that because sometimes when I have words in my ears, it's hard for me to read words on a page. You know, when you like stare at a sentence and you can't read it. I find this like whenever my husband's on the phone with anyone and it's on speakerphone, I can't read a sentence. I will literally, like if the phone call is half an hour long, I will be staring at the same sentence for half an hour and not be able to derive any meaning from the letters and words and whatever that I'm seeing. Let me know if you're like that too. But I am, how far am I into Heart the Lover? I honestly didn't read that much over dinner because I was just kind of eating. But I am 36 pages into Heart the Lover. I'm liking it so far. I don't have really any strong feelings, but I do like the writing style. It's that type of like academia writing style that like it feels detached in certain ways, but it also feels very blunt and honest also. Like it's not trying to be glamorous, it's not romanticizing. So in a sense, it feels more intimate, but it also feels kind of detached at the same time. I don't know what the best way to describe that is, but it's that typical academia style writing. And the synopsis I gave you earlier is correct. The premise is, you know, our girl meets these two guys in college. The only difference is she does start dating one of them immediately right off the bat, and that's how she meets the other one as a friend. And also just their dynamic is interesting because they all go to the same school, but she hasn't really been like ingrained into that academia, like that super academia lifestyle, and these boys are very much like they're close with their professors. They take academia very seriously. They're kind of snobby in that way, you know what I mean? And the two of them are actually currently living at a professor's house while the professor is on sabbatical. So she kind of, as she gets to know them, gets introduced to this whole other side of academia and gets kind of like pulled deeper into the school culture system, all of that. And then we're just kind of seeing them interact with one another. They're just kind of living their lives and we're just watching it happen. It's one of those plots that like there's not really an intense fast moving plot, but there's always something happening. Like there's always some sort of conversation happening, some sort of character development happening, some sort of relationship forming or growing or developing or changing. So I'm not bored. Like I am enjoying my time with this. There's just not really a set in stone plot at this very moment, but I'm also only 35 pages in. So we're just still at the beginning. And also there are kind of already these passing remarks, these very quick passing remarks on academia and the prejudices that come with a school system. This is pretty good so far, I will say. So I'm gonna attend this online meeting thing, whatever it is, and I'm also gonna continue Heart the Lover. It's around 9:30. It is indeed bedtime, but here's one more reading update before I just like read before bed and then fall asleep. I feel like this light beside me is a little harsh on my face for the camera right now. It's wonderful for bedtime reading, but does not photograph well. Hold on. How about if I feel like you can see my face better here. No, it still looks weird. Whatever. We're in bed. I actually did end up finishing Heart the Lover. I was kind of multitasking when I hopped onto that HarperCollins. It was like a webinar thing. They were going through all of their fall releases one by one. So I was kind of half paying attention and I would kind of mute and then unmute them depending on like if I was interested in the book they were talking about. So yeah, I kind of did like a half mute, half unmute, half paying attention thing. And I did actually managed to read this, not all during the call, but then I finished this like 45 minutes after that call meeting presentation ended. And I did overall enjoy Heart the Lover. I think it was beautifully written. I think a lot of the like symbolism and just concepts they were introducing to represent this love that these characters had for each other, I think was beautiful. I loved the ideas of everything. And I do think the final part of this book, part 3, was the best. So this book was split into 3 parts, and the parts definitely were separated, you know, depending chronologically on where our characters were and like when they were interacting, which I found to be an interesting decision because I feel like a lot of stories that I have read recently that have this sort of like, yes, Bobs? What was I saying? Yeah, stories that have this kind of idea where we have characters that meet each other at a young age and then they reunite or we see them at a later date. Usually I find that authors like to tell those stories with alternating timelines that just jump back and forth, and that way I think you get a lot more kind of parallels that are more clearly presented to you. But I found reading the story in chronological order to be really refreshing because you just get a more intense, like concentrated idea of what the characters feel at that certain time. Like, it's not you're jumping back and forth, you have to keep track of like, wait, how am I feeling now, kind of. You really get into their headspace at that particular point in time. So I thought that was a good decision for this book. But yeah, I feel like Lilly King did write emotions very beautifully in this. What I will say is I've seen a lot of people really connect to these characters, and I've seen a lot of people sob at the end of this book, and I did, you know, I did feel emotions at the end of this book. I'm not completely cold-hearted. I did feel things at the end of this book, and I do think a lot of the writing at the end of this book was beautiful and definitely impactful, packs a punch, but I do feel like just overall I didn't completely connect to any of our characters throughout the story. I feel like because in part 1, that was kind of the crucial moment, the development of their love, their friendship, their relationships, where you know, that part's supposed to sell you on their love for each other. And then parts 2 and 3, I think, were kind of heavily reliant on what you felt about them after, like, at the end of part 1. I don't know, I just feel like in part 1, I was interested in seeing their dynamics with each other and their story as they went along. They had like ins and outs, like breakups and makeups and all of that. But by the end of part 1, I wasn't really emotionally invested in any of them. And so when we moved to part 2 and 3, I knew, like, I saw what Lilly King was doing, but it didn't emotionally hit me. It was more just like I could appreciate it for, you know, what the concept, like the idea of what was going on. But she also did a really interesting thing with narrative format in this book. So in part 1, we had a first person perspective. In part 2, we jumped to second person, and then I guess I'm not going to tell you what happens after that, but there was, yeah, switching POVs throughout the story, and I always find that fascinating when I see authors do that. I think it was in the Lisa C book in Daughters of the Sun and Moon, where Lisa C really purposefully chose to write her different character perspectives in different narrative styles, past, present, whatever, like all different narrative styles. And I found that to be so interesting. I found that to be cool in here too. Like, again, I could just kind of appreciate it because it gives you such a different feeling and meaning towards, you know, the things that are happening in that part of the story. So yeah, at the end of the day, I am going to give this a 4-star. It didn't 100% hit for me, but 4 stars, like, still a pretty good rating. So I did enjoy this overall. I just wish I had a little bit more of an emotional connection because I've seen so many people connect to this so deeply, and I just want to be with everyone. You know, when I see everyone loving a book, I want to love it too. But that was Heart the Lover, and I am probably gonna fall asleep like within the hour, but I am gonna start my next read. I'm gonna switch over to Kobo, and yeah, I'm reading To Dream in Darkness. I don't think you can even see the title because it's an e-arc, so it doesn't have the actual cover on it, but this is the new Anne Liang book that I'm so excited to read. I'm also, honestly, I'm scared to read this one because I hope it's good. I hope it lives up. You guys, like, you know how much I love A Song to Drown Rivers, and I'm expecting A Song to Drown Rivers from this one because Anne Liang hasn't written a like mythical historical fantasy type book like this since A Song to Drown Rivers. She's been doing her like YA rom-com stuff, which is fine, but like A Song to Drown Rivers is my Anne Liang. It's probably unfair to put A Song to Drown Rivers expectations on this one, but I'm gonna get into this one. The synopsis for this one essentially is we follow 2 gods. One is the god of healing and one is the god of death, I think. So they're very much opposite gods. They're very much at odds with one another. But I think, should I get the actual synopsis so I can actually explain this book to you? Yes, we have the death god, we have the healing god, and the god of death is fated to kill the god of healing, but she makes him an offer that he can't refuse. So she will help lift this curse that the death god has if he gives her 1 more month to live. And I hope this one gives me heartbreak. I really do. I want to cry. I'm gonna start this tonight. I'm gonna get my stylus out. I'm gonna start highlighting things and annotating things. I'm excited, but I'm probably gonna read, I don't know, anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, and then I will see you when I wake up in the morning. Good morning. It is, in fact, 6 a.m. I did read a whopping 11% of this book. I think that comes out to be like around 40 pages of this book yesterday, and then I proceeded to fall asleep. So didn't read that much yesterday. It is 6 a.m. right now, though, so I have 2 hours and 20 minutes left of this readathon, so I'm just going to sit in bed for that long this morning and read a little bit more of this to finish off our readathon. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you my thoughts in 2 hours when the readathon is done, but I am liking it so far. I'm also reading this one a little bit slower because I am taking the time, like, you know, to pause every so often, take a couple extra seconds to highlight things, to annotate things, but, you know, I kind of want to just sit back and savor this one for as long as I can. So we'll see how much I read in the next like 2 hours or so. And just like that, our 24 hours of reading is complete. It is actually 9 a.m. right now. I did read only till 8:20, but then yeah, I like went downstairs, had breakfast, all of that. So we are officially finished this day of reading. What a day it's been. I feel like we've gone through so many different journeys all in one day. I did promise you an update and kind of initial thoughts on To Dream in Darkness, though. I have made it, hold on, what percentage am I at now? I have made it to just about 40% of this book. So I read 30% of it this morning in our last 2 hours of the readathon. So far, I will say it's good. It hasn't gripped me as much as A Song to Drown Rivers did kind of immediately. And Liang's writing is beautiful. That is still the case here. It's beautiful, but it's also very easy to read. Like, it is the type of writing that it's just not confusing. At least for me, it's the type of writing that really meshes well with my personal brain, and it's a really fun one to highlight. I will say I'm having so much fun with the stylus, just highlighting random things that jump up to me. And yeah, this did have, I would say it kind of had a little bit of a slow start for me. At first, I wasn't really getting hooked into it. I feel like we have a very small cast of characters, which I think is good, like will be good in the long run, because we're going to be able to spend a lot of concentrated time with these characters and hopefully, you know, really get emotionally invested in them by the end of the book. But I would say in the first maybe like 25% of the book, I was missing that intense yearning, that ache, you know, that was so ever present in A Song to Drown Rivers. And I expected the same feeling in this book because I know Liang can do that. But I was missing that at the start of this book. And so for the first 25%, I was like, I like it. It's not bad. It's good, but it's not A Song to Drown Rivers level yet. There was just something about, I don't know, because our characters are gods. So I kind of expect them to act as gods, and Liang, I feel like, has done something interesting here where our gods kind of just act like humans in the way they speak, in the way they interact with one another. Obviously, the main difference is, you know, they're immortals, they're powerful, they have their kind of talents and special skills in their magical powers. But so far, they've kind of just acted like humans, and I haven't been getting that really like godly presence, aura with them. I think a lot of it has to do with the way they speak. So I wasn't really fully vibing with them, but once we hit that 25% mark, we started doing some things, diving into some things that, you know, gave me a lot of hope for the rest of this book. And since we hit the 25% mark, basically everything has improved. And I can't tell you why, because that would be a spoiler, but you'll have to just trust me on that. I feel like our dynamic between our characters really changed at that point and made everything a lot more interesting. Also, there is an unexpected like switching multi-POV situation here, and one that I wouldn't expect just from reading the book synopsis, but I am very intrigued at our second POV. I'm honestly enjoying the secondary POV more than our main POV. That story to me has more of that like desire feeling. But I'm also really interested to read on because it does seem like our two paths, our two different storylines that are running alongside each other, they do seem, there are hints that, you know, they are quite integrated. So I'm just very interested in seeing how these stories will intertwine, and we are kind of like getting to that point in the book now. So I am gonna continue this, I guess, past our readathon. You'll have to wait until the monthly wrap up to find out my final thoughts on To Dream in Darkness, but at this point in the book, it is getting good. which is great. This is just like a cheap trick that probably any author could do and it would make me happy, but I love when authors have really good food descriptions in their books and add a lot of just like food presence in any random scene. Like if our characters are having a conversation and there's dinner on the table, I don't want to just read about the fact that there's dinner on the table. I want to know the specific dishes that are there, and I want to know what they look like, what spices they're seasoned with, like everything, what they smell like. I'm such a foodie, and I have just found that about myself, that whenever authors really take the time to describe food in their books, it makes me happy and it immediately makes me love their writing that much more. But that's just a really personal me thing. I'm sure not everyone has that, but that's something I've discovered about my own preference for books. All right, that being said though, I think this was a pretty successful readathon. I had a lot of fun, and these are the books that I read. So The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu, Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick, and Heart the Lover by Lilly King. And then partway through To Dream in Darkness. All right, guys, I'm gonna leave you guys here for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what you're currently reading. I honestly just always love seeing what you're currently reading. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!